Welcome back to Founders in the Field, the show where we go behind the scenes with agency leaders, consultants, and creative founders to show you how they're building, scaling, and staying sane in the trenches. I'm your host, Stefan Bradley, and today's guest is Elizabeth Venafro, founder of EAV Marketing, providing fractional CMO leadership to growing organizations. How are you doing, Elizabeth?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you. Let's dive straight in. For people who don't know your story, take us right back to the start of your journey and what made you start your own business, and give us an overview of what your role looks like today inside EA.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been in marketing about 20 years now. Started out my career in the medical space, and it was with a startup. I was their first marketing hire. I was with them for 9 years from startup all the way through their IPO and got to see, the growth of the organization, but also got to build out their marketing function and really loved that whole process. After that, still stayed in some full time roles with various organizations, mainly in either the medical space or in the tech space or some combination of the two. About 3 years ago, I was the VP of marketing for a company called Sourcero, which is a AI data analytics platform company. And I was with them about a year and I started getting quite a few inquiries from just people I had networked with in the past leading up to that point saying, hey, we'd really like for you to do some side work here and there. And it got to the point where, I was talking to my husband and he's like, you should really go into consulting. You have all these, people that want to work with you. And, in my head, I was thinking, well, it's not really fair for me to stay on full time with the company I'm with right now and then try to do some sort of moonlighting with all these other companies that are coming to me. And so one day I came home and I said, "Okay, I quit." And my husband's like,
Hmm.
What'd you just do?" But you know what? It's been an amazing journey. The company that I left, it was on good terms, and they were actually one of my first clients when I moved on to the fractional chief marketing officer work that I do now. And I've just continued to build it out. And it's fortunately been, a steady stream of referrals that have come to me and have been able to keep it up and running for, like I said, about 3 years.
It's like often you see it's like the other way around to that, as opposed to people want to start their own business and they don't hear, people wanting their services before they sort of have to get themselves on it. But with you, you've kind of cut your teeth in a business that, went from startup all the way to IPO, and then obviously with another company, and then you've actually had the market speak to you, which is obviously quite rare.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's scary going out on your own, and so I did have that comfort, fortunately, and knowing
Mm.
that I had these leads already coming into me without really doing much marketing of myself and my services, and so I felt like that was a sign. Being in the business, though, for about 20 years, I think it's all about networking, and just making sure you leverage that network as you do start to go out on your own.
But definitely, you reap what you sow, definitely, because all the years that you've been networking and things like that, you bears fruit later on, as it is with you. And it's also good that you've got a husband that obviously pushes you to want to do them types of things as well. Because I feel
Very
like,
supportive.
so yeah, very supportive. Because obviously it's a jump to the slight unknown also as well, from the comfort of having a job that pays you salary type of thing or whatever it
Yes.
was. But as opposed to jumping out on your own, it's good that obviously you have that support to be able to have the confidence to do that.
That's true. No, you have to it really has to be kind of the right circumstances for you to be able to do that.
Definitely.
I was fortunate in that.
So, Elizabeth, what are the biggest trends that you're seeing inside the market right now?
So, you're probably not gonna be surprised that I'm gonna use the AI buzzword here, but I wanna say that it's in a couple different ways. So, in the marketing space, obviously, there are some folks that are a little concerned, right? The clients are saying, "Well, what are you bringing to the table? I can just throw this into ChatGPT and it can write the press release and it can do all the work for me. What is it that you're gonna do that's so much different?" And so I think it's something that we need to leverage as a tool, but also educate the market on the fact that it doesn't replace humans. There is so much more that a human can add to it, and you shouldn't fully 100% rely on those tools to build out everything you're doing. Now, Can it be a great bonus for both the
Mhm.
client and for yourself? Yes. I mean, you can be a lot more efficient, a lot more productive, and some of the tasks that are a little more time consuming and don't
Mhm.
necessarily need that human brain power, I fully support leveraging AI. But it's really that combination of the human and the AI. And then I'd say, in the same vein, on the topic of AI, just talking about strategy on a go forward. So, how folks are looking at SEO, which is search engine optimization, is still extremely important, but also looking at how you're ranking in the search tool or the AI search tools as well, because so many folks now are just skipping over the typical search engine steps and they prefer tools like ChatGPT to do that kind of searching. And it is slightly different. The strategy, the marketing strategy that goes along with that, and how you're ranking for search engines as opposed to these other AI tools, it is something that you have to consider, and a slight change in strategy, and something that if you aren't staying on top of it and continuing to educate yourself on the strategies and all the tools that are out there, then you'll fall behind.
Oh, definitely. With your first remark where you said about marketing clients are like, what are you doing now? I often link it back to it's a human that has to use it. If you're an expert in marketing, you're going to be able to use it, and you're AI savvy, you're going to be able to use that a lot better than the average person. Do you know what I mean? It's only as good as the person using it. If you put good stuff into it and you know how to brainstorm it, manipulate it to get to the results, because it never gives you it's never going to give you the final result of what you need off a couple of prompts. It's a
Right.
lot of like digging into it and using it. And I feel like as marketers now, it's imperative that they use it as a tool and get good at using it. Do you know what I mean? Because opposed to, because
Yeah.
yeah, go on,
I was gonna
go on.
say, and for the right things, because you can
Mhm.
sometimes I fall into that rabbit hole when I'm like, "Oh, I'll just use, ChatGPT for this," but then before I know it, it's like an hour later and I still haven't developed what I wanted to,
Mhm.
it to really create for me, and so, like, well, maybe I should have just done this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. You could definitely get caught in a rabbit hole with it and going
Yeah,
sort of round in circles sometimes as
yeah.
well. But yeah, like it's only like you say, it's a tool. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody can have access to these tools, but it's how you use them and how efficient you can use them to get, and how clearly you can articulate yourself to get what you need, but also having that expertise to be able to check it before it goes out. You
Oh,
know what I mean? Because
100%.
you could be an expert at using it and a marketing genius, but if you just don't check it before, then you're not leveraging your own expertise as well as leveraging AI. And that's the advantage I feel like marketers are going to have over, the clients, whether they're plumbers or whatever, whatever business they may do, B2C, B2B, whatever. But if they're not have a marketing way of looking at things, then they're not going to be able to, one, get the AI to craft exactly what it needs, but also to be able to check it before it goes out.
I think there's still a lot of content that I'm seeing out there that is so obviously developed by
Mm,
these AI tools, and it's really lacking the human touch.
mhm,
And, human emotion and that human touch is oftentimes what really resonates with folks. And so if you don't have that marketing lens where you can review that content before putting it out there, then it could fall completely flat.
mhm. And to your second point around, LLM search optimization, I suppose, sort of thing like that. It's almost like from what my understanding of it, speaking to different marketers, it's almost like going backwards in the process as opposed to where people would sort of search for keywords on Google. Now they're having a conversation about it, like to get them to that point. So they'd be like, okay, my boiler's messing up. Is it this? And it's almost like you've got to try and work out what the conversation words are going to be before you get to it. Is that a right understanding of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were very much focused on keywords and then keyword phrases and long tail phrase, and it has SEO in itself has evolved
Hmm.
quite a bit over time. You always have to stay on top of those algorithms. But definitely with these tools, people are having a conversation. They're asking a lot of questions. So, for instance, FAQ sections on websites are more valuable than ever these
Mm,
days because that is generally what you're putting into the queries. It's in a question type format. And that
mm.
and that's what these tools are looking for their responses.
Yeah, no, so it's almost like you're preempting what the conversations are going to be like before they actually get to the point of the problem or the keyword that they would put into it
Yep.
because of these things. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And from what I've heard from different people, they said it's a small market share at the moment, but it's growing. So if you don't stay on top of this now, get in front of this now, then eventually that could potentially overtake, say, SEO or other things like that. But at the moment, it's still quite small. Is that true?
I mean, I'd say obviously people are still using Google and whatnot, but yes, growing
Mhm.
extremely fast and something you absolutely can't ignore right now.
Interesting times. So, Elizabeth, what is working well and where do you feel slight friction at EAV?
So what's working well, kind of going back to what I was saying at the beginning, referrals. I think it's all about not just the networking that I've done earlier in my career, but making sure that when I work with my clients now that I establish really strong relationships. And, the way in which I work with these clients is different. Sometimes it's more of just an ad hoc project where other times I am there, literally their one marketing resource and it's just an ongoing relationship. In other situations, they've brought me in to build out their whole marketing team and then take a step back. So different type of work depending on the client, but making sure regardless of the length of time that I spend with them or the type of work that I'm doing with them, that I'm developing that relationship. So developing that word of mouth for the future. So if someone comes to them and says, oh, that you had a, fractional marketing, how did that work out? It's great. Let me give her information. So I'd say probably 90% of my work is entirely referral based, whether that's from prior to me moving into this type of work with the consulting and the fractional work, or just from my more recent clients that I've had. As far as friction, I would say I look at it more on maybe a macro level. So things that are going on with, the economy and some uncertainties there and just, people want to maybe reel in their budget a bit. And so because I'm not a full-time employee, it's a lot easier to cut out those type of things when the budgets get tight, right? It's not like we have this, an agreement or it's just a lot easier from that perspective to cut out a contractor or a consultant, someone you have in that type of role versus a full-time employee. Besides that, um, I would say just, I'd say maybe going back to the AI conversation, not to be repetitive too much, but more and more folks saying, I can just do this myself. But then I'm seeing it and saying, well, why don't
Mm.
I, give it that marketing lens before we just put it out there? So I would just encourage folks to still, even if the initial draft of something is generated by the AI tools, making sure that you get someone with some marketing expertise to get a second pair of eyes on it.
No, definitely. And I feel like the A sticking on that point with the AI as well, when you give it pointers and you say slightly change this to this, it often will tell you, actually, this is much better than the one I did. Do you know
Yep.
what I mean? And that they
Yeah.
often does that
Yep.
to me
I've
when
seen
I'm
that.
doing certain things. And it says, yeah, actually, no, this one's much better than the one I just did.
Yep.
And I'm like, why?
Yep.
And then it tells you exactly why. So it's definitely, it wants to be improved almost as well. Do you know what I mean? It wants to be double checked and because it wants to produce the best results for you. And also your referrals, making a lasting impression, a good impression is so vital, isn't it? When obviously when you work from referrals and having that word of mouth things, definitely doing a good job and making sure that you last in their memory of having a positive experience is like so important when you go out on your own type of thing.
Yep. And also for coming back, right? Like maybe
Mm,
you had a short project with somebody, it's over, but then 6 months down the line, something else pops up and you're the first person that comes to their mind. They come right
hmm.
back to you.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously you've mentioned about referrals. Is there any type of other way that you try and get clients in? Is there any other sort of systems or anything that you're using, or is it sort of majority of referrals?
So, there's obviously some freelancing tools and platforms out there. Because of the type of work that I do is more the strategic level, although because of the size of companies that I work with can be execution, very much execution as well, because startup companies sometimes don't have anybody in any marketing type function. But I guess where I'm headed with that is, a tool like like Upwork or Fiverr, for instance, you could potentially get some leads there. But what I have found in responding to that type of work is it's more people just looking for some very quick, very inexpensive help with a small little project. So I wouldn't say that completely rule it out because I have gotten some, decent work out of those type of tools. But I wouldn't say that's necessarily the number one channel. I do leverage LinkedIn quite a bit, and that's mainly organic. In fact, I don't think I run for personally for me, for my business, I haven't had to run any paid ads on LinkedIn. It's more of just generating legit good content and educational in nature, not salesy, just, trying to help people. And when people see that you actually know what you're talking about, they reach out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like having organic content is a must nowadays. Even if it's not the only thing that you're using, it's a definite must because even if you're doing outreach, automated outreach, like to start with to spark initial conversations, they always are going to check your page to see your
Mhm.
content before they even probably replied, before they know that you're serious. So having organic content there that's relevant to the target market that you're speaking to, I feel like is imperative. But
Mhm.
do you think are you having like, with your referral base, do you have like a steady, predictable flow of leads throughout?
It's kind of interesting. So since I've been doing it for 3 years now, I just the other day and I've done this, year over year around this time of year, laid over, a graph year over year. And for whatever reason, it does tend to follow a certain seasonal pattern. There tends to be a little bit of a dip, say beginning of the summer, and then there does tend to be a big upward trend in the fall. So I'm not sure I'm still trying to figure out the why behind that, but it is interesting to me that there is that seasonality that tends to come with this type of work.
It makes a life, but once you notice them patterns and you can sort of like, work on them patterns to be able to have it sort of more predictable, it's more beneficial to you, obviously, because you then can be like, I know throughout this whole 12 months, I get this many leads in. So I feel like it's a good that you're even looking at that to be able to say, okay, I'm not sure why this trend is happening, but it'd be good if I can fix this to get it more on one level.
Right. Or at least plan properly for that, right?
Yeah.
So if you know that's going to be a downtime, then okay, well, maybe I'll shift more to my internal marketing at that point. And, when it's on the up and up, you're not going to have time to do much to market
Mhm.
yourself. So
Yeah, predictable pipeline just makes life a lot easier, I would say. So, Elizabeth, where do you want to be in the next 12 to 18 months in terms of business?
So it's interesting. I've had several clients that I worked with in this type of capacity that said, we'd love for you to come on full time with us. And they've been very tempting offers. But I have to say, I love what I'm doing. I love the structure. I love the type of clients that I'm working with. I think the whole fractional model really works well for startups and scale ups that may not necessarily have the budget or even necessarily the need at that point for a full time employee. And being somebody who worked with an organization at the beginning of my career from startup all the way through to that IPO, I was able to see, every step of the way, kind of the needs and what excited me the most. And it was really that growth phase. And so the clients that are coming to me saying, we need someone now in a full-time capacity, that's kind of where I'm like, I'm happy to help you hire that person, but I really want to just continue what I'm doing and continue to grow out my business. I, at this point, have several freelancers that I use to help more with the execution and tactical pieces of it, like
Mm.
graphic design, web development, and complement some of the areas where I personally may not be as strong, like coding, for instance. Like, I have a great deal of experience with the actual build out and oversight of the website, but when the specific coding piece of it, I'd much rather have a freelance expert to do that for me. But it can definitely in the peak times get a little stressful. Also, even from the strategic standpoint. So I wouldn't completely roll out bringing on a partner down the line or several other folks at a more the strategic level to help address the growing business.
But definitely, I feel like if you were to, if and when you to do that, you'll be able to obviously take on more clients as well and like scale that way. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And not have the sole pressure on you, even though you still would be sole pressure on you as your name above the door, of course, but at least having that people around you that can, make life a little easier to be able to serve more people, especially. I feel like once you have that taste of freedom, it's really hard to then want to go back and work inside a company. So I feel like, yeah, a lot of people feel like it's tempting, of course, because obviously it's stability and things like that. But I feel like once you have that taste of being your own boss, even though technically it doesn't almost always feel like that, because it feels like you've got lots of little bosses because you've got all your clients,
Right.
But
Yep.
I still feel like you have that sense of freedom that you don't have when you work in a job.
There's pros and cons to it for sure. So
Mm,
one thing I posted not too long ago, I was on a vacation with my family, and it's a picture of me on the beach with my laptop, and it said, "The benefit of working for yourself is you can work anywhere." And then the con there is that you have to work from it anywhere. It's very, very rare that I take
mm,
like fully shut off and take time for myself. Like
mm,
I'm on that beach with that laptop if I need, whatever you need to do to keep that business and keep that client happy and keep that relationship, right? Because like we talked
mm,
about before, for future referrals and making sure you're keeping the clients happy. So pros and cons, but
mm.
in this situation, I definitely would say that the pros outweigh the cons, which is why I'm still doing what I'm doing.
So true. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you go from you not wanting to work for yourself, but then and you think like you potentially think you have more free time, but it's actually you have less free time, but you're happier doing it. I feel like.
Yes. That's actually, I love that soundbite. That's
Hmm.
perfect. That's exactly how I feel.
So, my last question, Elizabeth, is if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business, what would
Mm.
it be and why?
Okay. Give me a second on this one. I would say maybe going back to what I was just talking about to some extent, which is that I need to clone myself. So if I could have a second, me or someone at my level that complements some of the areas maybe where I'm not as strong, but just bandwidth, right?
Mm,
So many days I'm like they just fly by, and I can't believe that. Yeah, I had this list of 10 things I wanted to get done, and I was able to maybe get 3 of them done, and I'm my worst critic as well. So I hold myself accountable to those type of things, and that can be a stressor, of course. So I would just say, bandwidth in general and being able to continue to build that out. And, during some of those maybe seasonal downturns is when I need to do some of that planning to figure out more of a formal plan for how what that structure would look like in the future.
no, definitely, that's a good answer. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs that are, doing it on their own at the moment and looking to scale up, I feel like can definitely relate to that and will feel your pain in what you're saying there, 100%. But Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this conversation, enjoyed this
Likewise.
podcast. Where can my viewers and listeners reach out to you if they're wanting to, they might have the business, they might want to, hire you, do you mean to help work in their business? Where's best to reach out to you?
Sure. So on my website, EAV marketing.com. And then I would also love to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. So once again, my name's Elizabeth Venafro, V as in Victor, E and as in Nancy, A, F as in Frank, R-O. Please reach out and love to say hi.
Well, everybody, can you please like, comment, subscribe, and send to a friend who you think would enjoy this episode? And we'll see you next week. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Great. Thank you. Talk soon.